We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today. Good evening, welcome to nufc Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the Supermac and Gibbo show, and suitably depressed, all three of us, after last night's result. Well, after the last two results, it has to be said, but we were having a chat in the green room beforehand. We're going to try and make it as upbeat as possible. John says he turns to me to cheer him up in moments like this, and he says he feels even worse after seeing my face today. So we will try and make sense of the last two results. But Malcolm, a 3-2 defeat at the Theatre of Streams last night. My overall appraisal, two average teams last night. I think it would be unfair to say poor. I think two average teams last night who don't deserve to be at the top table of European football this season. And certainly for the neutral, a great game to watch, but as a Newcastle fan, disappointing. And in my 40th year as a Newcastle fan, it's the same old. More disappointment, Malcolm.
Yeah. Yes, I thought things were a bit chaotic at the back last night, but it was a damn sight better than what we saw on Saturday against Brighton. Maybe you know differently, John, but I just find the whole Isak situation quite bizarre. Where on Saturday he comes out and looks as if he can't be bothered in the slightest, and stands out on the left wing. Gordon goes into the centre and does whatever he was able to do, and then we get told he was poorly. He was sick, and that was it. The excuse for him. Well, why didn't they leave him out and play Barnes, for heaven's sake? Because he just didn't try a leg on Saturday, and then we go to Old Trafford, and I'm just looking and I'm thinking, are you guys really putting the effort in here? And I started to see others that and Europe's so damn important to us, and I for the first time I got a feeling that there was something underlying going on. I don't know what it is, but I wasn't happy at all about either game.
I was very concerned. I was with you and sitting next to you at the Brighton game, Malcolm, and I was very, very concerned, as you were, that 2 points drop would come back and bite us. A lot of fans were less so. They seemed to think, well, we drew, we didn't lose, and we've got Manchester United who are hopeless to come, etc., etc. But I felt those 2 points would come back and bite us, because Chelsea were on a terrific run. They proved that last night as well. They're away from us. We're not going to catch them on the last day. And it was all, it's 1 point out the last 6. going into a game where we're playing away from home. And our record away from home. And by the way, at the end of the season, there will be an inquest into what went wrong. And the first thing that will be said by the club is that we were very unlucky with injuries throughout the whole season. I accept that, but I also accept that we have got to criticise ourselves, the we being Newcastle United. They've got to look at it and say our away form was horrendous. We've lost 11 out of 18 away from home. And guess what? The match that's now going to decide everything's away from home on Sunday. Our away form is atrocious. Our away form's like a team that's down the bottom, not a team that's fighting at the top. And it's been very, very, very bad. And there again, last night, we saw it all over again. The official line with Isaac is that he was ill, Wilson was ill. But if you can get your centre forward on the pitch that's scored 20 odd goals already this season, you've got to take the gamble that something will fall from him and he might finish. And the thing that hit me, if you look at the centre forward position, is that we played the last four against Brighton with no centre forward on the pitch because Isaac was substituted because he'd been ineffective and Wilson wasn't even there. But this is not a new problem. We've known this all season. And yet we've done nothing about it. And then this comes along and this is what we get. But I mean, if I look at last night, for example, and Brighton as well, if we come to that. But if I look at last night, there's more on Isaac to talk about. I mean, the back four, the goalkeeper's not good enough. Can we start at the back and work?
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. Not good enough. Pope is twice the player he is. And if Pope is fit enough to sit on the bench, why isn't he starting? Because Dubravka is not good enough. The back four, on the 3 goals last night, you think about them in your mind, guys. The 3 goals last night, the scorers, did they have BO? There was nobody within 100 yards of them. They were standing on their own. The kid that got the first goal, when the ball come to him, if you watch the replays, he actually had time and he looked around to say, where's the defender? And am I offside? And he got the answer to both. There isn't a defender, and I'm not offside because I've just been played on. And then he passed the ball into the net. But he actually looks round before he passes the ball into the net. Now, let us also say, as we're pointing fingers, that Trippier was shocking. I mean, he is an experienced England international right back. The guy that scores isn't behind him, he's in front of him. Trippier's looking along the line and he still doesn't step out. Now, the whole of the country's murdered Casemiro for doing exactly that against Arsenal when Arsenal scored and that was a game lost. Trippier did it last night. He is looking along the line. Everybody else has stepped out and he hasn't. He's played him on and the kids just... But
he looked asleep, John, at that moment in time. He looked as if his mind was completely elsewhere.
And he was as rusty as it's possible to be. He played very, very poorly. It was, I mean, the only 2 guys I would put a tick next to on the whole of last night is Lewis Hall and Anthony Gordon. I would put minuses against everybody else. I thought defensively we were shocking.
I certainly agree with you on Hall. I thought that was the best game that we've seen him play.
That's what I said. The only 2 I would give a plus to was Hall and Anthony Gordon.
I would certainly agree on that, John. And I go along with Gordon as well.
Who scored, ought to have had a penalty. I mean, did you see
it was a penalty.
Oh, did you see his sock? Ripped to bits and his red Achilles.
Right on the Achilles.
Nobody touched him. Well, how did that happen, by the way? You know, on the day we were told...
And yet one of the angles, John, clearly showed that before Casemiro got anywhere near, the fellow hacked him across the back of the leg, which caused the damage to the sock.
Yes, absolutely.
And down he was going.
I mean, the keeper wasn't good enough. the back four as a unit weren't good enough. The 3 goal scorers were completely unmarked in the penalty area. The second goal, the kid that was at Sunderland last season is standing in our penalty area unmarked. Yes, it's a great finish. It's a great shot, but he's standing in our penalty area completely unmarked. Can you believe it? The back four were poor. The midfield was the way they have been in the past. The people just ran through our midfield and onto the back four. The midfield was non-existent, absolutely non-existent. And up front, Isaac was the way he's been in the last 2 games. Gordon did well, but we missed a lot of chances. And it was to think that so much was riding on that. And then, what did we get out of it? We've got 1 point out of the last 6. We're clinging on to 7th position, only on goal difference. And we go into the last day, and it's a 3-match shootout for the last.
But John, we need to match the points of Manchester United.
Yeah, that's
if they draw, we draw. If they win, we have to win.
Correct.
And that's how it works out.
But to be in that position, we've sacrificed where it was in our own hands, because it isn't. Because even if we get the result that puts us into 7th place, it isn't in our hands, because if Manchester United somehow beat Manchester City in the cup final, we aren't in Europe anyway, because they'll take the last place through winning the FA Cup. So we've still, and yes, we it should be no contest. Manchester City beat Manchester United in the FA Cup final. But wait a minute, it's only a few years ago that Wigan beat Manchester City in the FA Cup final. You remember that? Wigan beat Man City in the FA Cup final.
Oh, I remember it very well.
So who's to say Manchester United, in a freak, a player gets sent off, they get a penalty, in OG, in a freak, something happens again. Heaven forbid. But we're going into the last weekend, Chelsea and Man U in Newcastle. That's the 3 on the line. Chelsea and Man U are going in with the huge lift of going into the last day on the back of wins, and we are going in the last day on the back of a defeat. There's a massive, massive difference. And quite frankly, I accept about the injuries, etc., but our away record's nobody's fault but our own. To have lost 11 out of 18 away from home is absolutely shocking. And, if we don't have a change of attitude down at Brentford, then we'll get beaten. If Manchester United don't get beat at Brighton, and they could, we'll be out of Europe.
Okay, because a question for you, and one for everybody who is watching to have a ponder on. Against Brighton and against Manchester United, did we look like a team that really wanted to go and play in Europe?
We certainly didn't look like a team good enough to go and play in Europe. That's for sure.
But John, you and I, we sat together against Brighton, and we did not look like a team that wanted to go and play in a European competition.
Oh, I mean, it was in our own hands. When we went to Burnley and won 4-1 and had Wilson and Isaac up front firing on all cylinders and everything, I thought, terrific. Burnley weren't good opposition, but we took them apart. We looked potent with Wilson and Isaac there. I thought, we're going to make Europe for certain. We are going to make Europe for certain. And it was in our hands. Since then, we've just let it completely and utterly slip, and it's in other people's hands. We've got 3 matches on Saturday: Brentford v Newcastle, Chelsea v Bournemouth, and Brighton v Man United. And that will decide what's happening in the lower part of the European games for next season. And even if we survive and go into Europe, and I've got a feeling we could, on the back of both us and Manchester United lose away. that could well happen on Sunday. We lose at Brentford, Man United lose at Brighton, then we finish above Man United because of our goal difference. But they've still got the last laugh, because if they somehow pull a rabbit out of the hat at Wembley, we are going nowhere apart from round the rest of England next season.
Yeah.
And there's people that have said to me, Steve, and you'll have heard this with the fans, there's people that have said to me, well, you know, having had the wonderful times and the glamour of the Champions League this season and the wonderful evening when we beat Paris Saint-Germain 4-1, which was truly magnificent, there's some fans saying to me, look, the Europa Conference League doesn't matter a jot. It doesn't appeal to me. Most of the teams that are in it until you get to the later stages are going to be non-glamorous sides from non-glamorous countries, etc., etc. And do we want to be in it? Well, my answer to that, and it's only a personal answer, is yes, I want to be in it. And I'll tell you why I want to be in it, because I'm not meaning that I think the Conference League will draw players to sign for Newcastle, because it doesn't have the charisma if the Champions League. But what it means is we are desperate to win a trophy, guys, and we haven't won it since 1969. Now, here we go. We can be in 3 knockout cups next year, the League Cup, the FA Cup, and the Conference League, or we can be just in 2, the 2 domestic ones. So let's have a go at 3 competitions to try to win a trophy rather than 2 competitions to try to win a trophy. So I do want to be in. And, you know what's harsh? What's harsh but true is that Eddie Howe has said all season that our goal, our intention, our aim is to be in Europe next year. Now, if we get beat at Brentford, and Manchester United don't get beat at Brighton, we're not in Europe. Now, does that mean, by Eddie's own admittance, that the season's been a failure?
Disappointing, really, last night. I mean, there was a couple of things which stood out for me. You're right. I think Anthony Gordon and Lewis Hall both, were outstanding. It was the penalty decision I couldn't understand. And of course, Malcolm, it came on a day when Wolves submitted a request for the AGM to consider banning VAR in the Premier League next season. I mean, yeah, that was a penalty all day long, wasn't it?
All day long. Yes. Yeah. As soon as it happened, I in my head, I just went penalty, and I thought it was so obvious and quite blatant.
It was a penalty. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But at the same time, I don't want to hide too much behind the penalty, because if we make that the excuse for Newcastle losing, then we'll go out with the same attitude and think we were badly done to, and we'll go out with the same attitude at Brentford, in which case we'll get our bottom smacked. There is more wrong with Newcastle United season than VAR. I mean, the attitude we're going out with, the ability we're going out with, we just seem to, when we play away from home, we just seem to think we'll go out there and then we'll come back in and we'll have the 3 points, and we're inevitably getting smacked time and time again away from home. And we're playing away from home this weekend. The form has been nowhere near good enough. Nowhere near good enough. And we can't hide that, and we mustn't hide it. I don't mean us, I mean Newcastle United. We mustn't hide it because of injuries or because of VAR or because of any other excuse. We have been caught short.
Yes, but also, John, what has surprised me is that where last season we could rely on certain players to go and do a particular job, it's not happening this season. There are players that think, "Oh, come on, for heaven's sake, where's this nonsense coming from?" And we mentioned Trippier last night. Well, he looked as if he was half asleep, for heaven's sake. And heavens above, this is an England player, a current England international. And he was just so far out of it that I thought, well, what does he need doing? What does he need? A kick up the backside, a bomb putting behind him. For somebody so experienced to play Man United on in the way that he did for that goal, I watched and I thought, I can't believe what I'm actually witnessing. And I thought maybe it wasn't Trippier, maybe it was somebody else, maybe it was Anderson but no, it was Trippier. It was Trippier, and I thought, well, Anderson, he hasn't got the experience of Trippier, and maybe he's just cocked it up. But it wasn't. It was Trippier of all people. And the one thing that he was always doing earlier in the season and last season, he was getting people up. He was forcing them to push up, get out, let's go. And last night, oh dear me, and I just thought, do these players really want to be playing in Europe?
That's the question, I guess, and only the players know that. We've got a lot of questions coming in from people who, are quite rightly feeling a bit down, a bit depressed. Lots of people have got their own opinions as well. Tom Dixon says the away record is abysmal. 11 defeats from 18. Only 3 teams have lost more. 38 goals conceded. Only 3 teams have let in more. He says, why do you think Newcastle have struggled on the road this season, lads? John, I'll come to you first. Why do you think that Newcastle have struggled on the road this season?
That's a brilliant question, because in the main, a lot of the players in the team were in the team that were so good defensively last season when we had the best record, along with, I think, Manchester City, the best defensive record in the Premier League. And most of the players are the same. I think there's several small reasons. I think one of the reasons, and I'm not putting any dumping on Dubravka, but he is definitely a big grade down from Pope. And Pope's a sweeper keeper. He comes out, he reads, he anticipates things. I look at Martin, and for me, he is reactive rather than proactive. He doesn't come first. He waits and then, and then he goes too late, and then he goes with a rush of blood. And a clever forward that's going to keep his cool just pulls it, slips the ball, and boom. He could have done better on the third goal. I think he has been a massive miss, and there's nothing wrong with the attitude of the players in terms of camaraderie, in terms of love of the club, all for one, one for all. But there's something wrong mentally in their approach. They've got sloppy. I mean, it ends up where, they're running through our midfield. Last night, our midfield was non-existent. They just ran onto our back four willy-nilly. Now you miss Joe Linton in there because you didn't run past Big Joe too often with his physicality. So he's been a miss. But what you end up querying, guys, is do some individuals think they're better than they actually are because of what happened last season? Because last season, there was a gritty determination in every single man, and consequently, we punched above our weight. And we definitely punched above our weight to finish 4th and get to a Wembley Cup final. We punched above our weight. Now, having achieved that, subconsciously, in some minds, not every mind, do you suddenly think, hey, I'm a better player than I realised I was, etc., etc. And you go out there, and without that absolute relentless determination to be the best you can be, which took us to 4th last season, once you start thinking you're actually there, and I don't mean it's subconscious, it's not cigars out, but once you start thinking you're that little bit better than you are, you'll get found out and you'll get taken. And Newcastle are doing that away from home. At home with 50,000 behind them and driving them on. They remain that side that's determined and bitterly determined and wanting to do because the crowd's encouraging to do that. Once they're away from home and they haven't got that, and they miss key players for yonks, like they've missed Pope and they've missed Joe Linton, and we've missed having a centre forward. But I mean, we could have foreseen this happening. I mean, we wasted the last transfer window when we did nothing. Now we might have a very good excuse, financial fair play, etc., etc. But this business, guys, we've talked about not having a centre forward in the last half hour against Brighton and not having the centre forward where Isaac could be left out with Wilson because there was no centre forward in the club. That is not a new problem, guys. We've had that problem for yonks. If having only Isaac and Wilson, who misses 50% of the games, and that's our two centre forwards, we're trying to buy the kid out of France a little while back. That's how long the problem's been there, and we haven't done anything to solve it. There's a lot of questions to be answered in the summer. Once Sunday is out of the way, and once the cup final's out of the way, and we're either nowhere in Europe or we're not, regardless of whether we are or not, there's some huge questions to be asked in the summer because we need a centre half. We need a number 6. For me, we need a number 6, and I've said it on this podcast yonks ago. Our midfield, people just run through it. We need a number 6 who says, you're not going to do that. There's no way you're going to get past me, pal.
He's suspended, isn't he? He's suspended. That's the problem. They bought Tonali to do that.
Well, I've seen no sign that he was going to do that. I'm not certain what Tonali was going to do. Attack, defend, etc., etc. Sandro, and I hope it all works because we spent 52 million. Sandro has to justify himself next season, and let's hope he does because, by Jove, we need him to. We need him to.
He owes Newcastle United big time, John.
Yeah, we need a centre forward, Malcolm, and we need an outside right.
Yeah.
Busy transfer window. Few questions have come in. What we'll do is we will go to the ad break and we will try and get through a few of your questions before we look ahead to Brentford after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk, telephone 01768 210 102, or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460, or mobile 0791 666 4174. Thanks to Media Arts for the technical side of things. And you can also find us as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. You can subscribe to the channel by hitting the subscribe button underneath this video. Hit the all notifications bell so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumb up to like the channel and click share to your social media. If you want to join the channel, then click join for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become a member for a one-off £25 payment, email john@nufcmatters.com or go to membership at the website nufcmatters.com. If you've got a smartphone, hold your camera over the QR code and it'll take you straight there. We also help the food bank on this channel. Go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk to the matchday bucket and you can leave a virtual donation today. And don't forget, the end of season due with Supermac, Gibbo, George, and the Long Sands in aid of Dementia Matters takes place at the Irish Centre, 20th of July, 5 o'clock till late. nufcmatters.com or newcastlelegends.com is where you can get your tickets, and they are a tenner. And we've got one more week to go on the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. Join me, Ryan, Ted, live on the Tyne Radio, weekdays 7 till 9 a.m. on DAB, smart speakers, and the tuneuk.com. And in the summer, Rob Lee is hosting an event at the City Hall, 2nd of August 2024. Tickets are available via ticketmaster.co.uk or from Woucher, so don't miss out on that. It's sure to be a really, really good night. Okay, we have got a lot of questions coming in. Tom, I'll give you this one as well. He said, question for Malcolm and John, would you scrap VAR? Malcolm, Wolves have put in a motion for the next AGM, which takes place next month, that the Premiership should scrap VAR. Are you in favour of that?
No. What I am in favour of scrapping is the people who mismanage it so badly. They really haven't got a clue as to what they're doing and why they don't get professional footballers, ex-pros involved in that, who know exactly what it is that they're seeing, and have it with two ex-professional footballers, with a referee beside them, and you'll have it sorted out in next to no time, and all the faffing on that happens. I really can't believe how they are mismanaging. I think it's a really good idea, but do it properly, and they're not doing it. I don't think they actually grasp the actual technology that's there, and they misuse it. So I'm in favour of VAR, but get rid of the prats who can't use it properly. And wasn't it an outstanding piece of misuse against Manchester United for the penalty? Gee whiz! If they couldn't see that was a penalty, then get rid of them, idiots.
What's your view then, John? Would you scrap VAR?
I think I agree with Mal that I probably wouldn't. It needs a lot of improvement to go with it to make it better. If we can make it much more automatic, the decisions, and make the decisions quicker, because apart from anything else, it's taking the fun out of football. You wait for somebody scores a goal. You can see it's a perfectly ordinary goal, but we then stand for 2.5 minutes on the pitch, which is an eternity, by the way, waiting for VAR to make a decision, and then they say it is a goal, and then we can celebrate it. The natural reaction of the crowd and the players to scoring a goal has been taken away from us, and that's diluting what football is all about, the excitement, everything else. I mean, the rule won't be changed. There's not a cat chance of the rule being changed, because there's got to be 14 vote for it to be changed for it to happen, and there simply isn't that. And the FA with the Premier League, they know that they want it retained, and they know that they're not going to get a big enough response from clubs to throw it out. So it's a non-starter. It's a good talking point. It's highlighted things. It's give us a talking point, and we're all pleased for that. And fans love a talking point. It won't happen because there won't be enough vote for it to be thrown out. You will get clubs, and you'll get Nottingham Forest will vote for anything that's anti-establishment or anti-referees or whatever. So there's a vote. Wolves will obviously do. But no, not enough people will vote, and it won't happen. I'm not looking for it to happen, but I'm off looking for it to improve. I really am looking for it to improve. And I'm looking for it to quicken up as well, because the joy I used to get out of football, I mean, even if the goal is an obvious goal, to check it from the halfway line in the build-up to see if there was any 4 fouls on the way up to the build-up, and not just an offside. And so it takes an eternity. And all the joy, I mean, all you get at the end, instead of the elation it's gone, you just get relief at the end that it's actually been given. And so the spirit of the game has been hit badly.
You know, John, I would go back to the early part of the season when Newcastle played at Anfield against Liverpool, and if you recall, Isak scored a second goal that would have put Newcastle 2-0 up.
That was last season. Yeah,
that was last season.
It was last season.
Yeah. Oh, last season. Okay, and they couldn't decide whether he was offside or not. So what they did was they worked it out on his and the centre half shadows. What on earth is that utter madness about?
Yeah,
that is crazy. That because it offers you nothing at all. Shadows are there's no regularity to them whatsoever. It depends on where the light's coming from, for heaven's sake. Who's nearest to the light? Who's furthest from the light? It utter nonsense. And yet some bright spark has come up with this stupid idea. And whilst that is going on, VAR will never be successful with idiots like that around it. And so that's why I say get ex-professional footballers involved, that those who really truly know the rules of the game, and no doubt referees will say, nah, but no footballers know the rules properly, not like us. Nonsense. What if, somebody like Frank Clark, who's one of the best football brains that I've ever come across.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of other questions before we look ahead to the game. Top Bobby just wanted to let you know, Gibbo, that he managed to get a copy of your book, The Newcastle United Story, and it's been signed by Bob Moncur, Peter Beardsley, Jackie Milburn, and your good self. So that's a cracking read as well. It's a good book. I've got that one myself.
There's 3 good autographs on there, and without a shadow of a doubt. I don't know about Bob Moncur, but there's 3 good ones. No, I don't mean that.
Andy Ford said, question, he says, apart from the Sunderland match, we've lost all the big games that mattered this season. Chelsea and Man City in the Cups. We bottled AC Milan at home. And the last 2 games when it was crunch time. Why do you think we're bottling the big games? And bottling's a word I've seen used quite a bit. I don't like that word. I don't think we've bottled it. I just think maybe sometimes it's inexperience. I will defend Eddie Howe and the boys on this score. We've had a horrendous injury list this season, and I think when you look at some of those games, it's come down to that and individual errors. Unfortunately for Kieran Trippier in the big games this season, and the ones that you're mentioning there, the errors have come down on his side of the pitch, unfortunately. It happened again last night. He was the man who played Manu on side last night. Wow. For him to score that goal. And I don't know whether he's, I hate to blame him because he's been a wonderful player for us. But maybe the game's just starting to pass him by now. It happens to every professional eventually, Mal.
Yeah, but not to fall asleep on the pitch like he did last night. On that particular instance, he just froze.
Yeah,
and it's an automatic reaction in players, in defenders, that as soon as the ball goes out, woof, you go, you push up. And he just stood and looked. And he saw everybody else pushing up, and it didn't register in his head. And I found that extremely worrying. And of course, the dreadful thing was that all the other defenders, as soon as the ball went beyond them, they just put their hand up, the fellas offside, and they looked and saw Trippier over their other shoulder, and what on earth is he doing there? You know,
I mean, in fairness,
inexplicable.
what you said, Steve, about the word bottle, I think we've always got to be a little bit careful about that and not knee-jerk reaction, because it's a heck of a word to accuse anybody of. And I'm not sure I can understand where the gentleman was coming from that asked the question, etc., etc. But off the top of my head, there was big games where we got big results. We beat Arsenal at home. We beat Paris Saint-Germain in Europe. If we didn't do it against AC Milan, we did it against Paris Saint-Germain 4-1, and we actually won in Paris 1-0 until the referee decided in the 98th minute the ball had rolled down Tino's arm and give a penalty. And we beat Manchester City in the League Cup. We beat Manchester United at Manchester United in the League Cup and beat them up here. I mean, we've got some big results as well as some poor results. That's been what's wrong with this season. It's been seesaw. It's been up and down. We've been on a trampoline all season, haven't we? We've hit highs and we've hit lows, and there's been no consistency. The last season we were consistent. This season, we either do terrific or we do nothing. I mean, bottling big games, I'm not certain. Aston Villa are in the Champions League. We beat them home and away this season. We beat them 5-1 up here when we beat them 3-1 down there. That's 8-2 on aggregate in there in the Champions League. So we've had some great results. We can't knee-jerk too much on the back of a horrendous last two games, 1 point out of 6, and forget the good times, because it's been the inconsistency that's cost us.
Yeah, and it's come in many forms as well, John. I remember Nottingham Forest at home, and we were 1-0 ahead. We weren't playing well. Forest looked like the worst team I've ever seen in the Premiership. They really did. And with about 2 minutes to go to half time, we were into added time, Shah suddenly goes running forward and wants to take part in corner kicks and all of that. For heaven's sake, it's the dying moments of a half. And you're 1-0 up, just keep it safe. Keep it secure. Don't take chances. And the next thing, all of a sudden, the little fella at Forest, he's been put through, and there was a massive great gap where Shah should have been, and he's gone through and scored a goal. They've equalised, and all of a sudden, we're falling apart, and there was no good reason for it, but there's got to be a better discipline in the side, and that there are particular stages in a game, and you play to a certain way in each of those stages. When you're playing away, and I thought the classic example was Burnley just recently, when Newcastle United, in the first 15 minutes, they kept it absolutely tight at the back. Burnley had the ball for 15 solid minutes, but couldn't do anything with it. And we defended terrifically. And we took the sting out of their game. Then we started to get possession, and we started to then go forward and more forward and go a bit quicker. And we built it up, and all of a sudden, bang, 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 and we're well ahead. The game was won, and that's great. That to me was good team management. But there are other times where there's no team management at all, and I think that Eddie Howe has got to clamp down. He's got to get a plan, particularly when we're playing away from home. When we play away from home, you're always going to be up against it. It doesn't matter who you're playing. And we've been caught out by so many damn sides. Luton, for example, they look world beaters in comparison to us, and what we didn't do was what we did do in the first 15 minutes against Burnley. We just didn't do it at Luton.
I think one of the problems, guys, from my point of view, and one of the lads put something across the bottom there, 4 or 5 back, and I thought, yes, spot on, you're good there. The point is, when you have a team which has got a sprinkling of elite players, and then the rest of the team, 50% or more, are honest tryers who can raise their game when they really are on blob, then you get inconsistencies. The more elite players you get, and you look at Manchester City in particular, but yes, you can say it about Arsenal. You cannot say it about Aston Villa, who've just done what we did last season. The more you get elite players, the more consistency you get. You know, the old thing that they used to say, Gary Player said, yeah, the more I practice, the better I become by accident. The more elite players you have, the more consistent you become. When you've got a good smattering of honest to goodness players above average, maybe it's good, but not great, then you get results like we've been having, where you beat Aston Villa home and away, where you beat Arsenal, where you beat Man City in the Cup. And then when you lose to Nottingham Forest at home, when you draw it with Luton at home, when you draw with Everton at home and lose at Everton, you get inconsistency when you haven't got enough elite players. And that's what we haven't got. And that is what we've got to aim to get. And therefore, the summer is so important, it's untrue, because the smattering of elite players we've got, we must hold on to and add to, not sell one of the elite players to get another elite one in. That's not taking any further. That's just putting a hole elsewhere in the team. We've got to build on the core of elite players we've got and improve it. If we've got 4, we've got to take it to 8. And then you got to, what you do eventually, you're like Manchester City. You've got 16 or 18 elite players, and that's when you start winning the Premier League.
Yeah, John, it's all very well having those players, but I do find myself scratching my head with the way that Eddie Howe goes about things at times. Prime example, last match, he's got Pope on the bench, who's now back fit, and he still plays Dubravka. And Dubravka has, I think, has really shown himself up in this stint that he's had through the injury to Pope. I think that he's had some real nightmares. And again, at Manchester United, for heaven's sake, he was all over the place at times in his area. And so why is one of the best goalkeepers in England sitting on the bench, back fit, and Dubravka's still in the side? I don't get it. I really don't get it. You've got to pick your best 11 players that are available to you if you're going to get results at this level of the game.
Well, I take that point totally, and you've got to. I presume Eddie Howe would say that he is not certain that his shoulders are 100%. He's okay to be covered.
Okay, John, he can say that, but my immediate response would be, well, are you 100% sure of Dubravka every game?
Oh, when you look at the current situation, and if you want to simplify it, you can say that this season, in the second half of it, 2024, we have missed big time and I've already said it, Nick Pope and Joe Linton. Well, they're both available for selection now. So why, surely, I mean, Joe Linton's a beast. In the midfield last night, you just ran through them.
Sure.
They were like confetti.
Yes.
They were like confetti in the wind.
And,
so surely, if you're playing this weekend, and it's now down to one game, you're not nursing players anymore. This is the last game of the season. When the final whistle plays at Brentford, that's the summer here. It is the end of everything. So what do? Do you pick your best players? If you pick your best players, you pick Pope, you pick Joe Linton, you put Wilson on the bench. If Wilson's supposed to be have an illness, then you've got to say to him, listen, mate, you've got all the summer to recover. You need to be on the bench for the last game of the season, and you're getting 90 grand a week, so we'll want you on the bench, and you've got to be on the bench. There's no good nursing them for any more. There's nothing. After Sunday, there's nothing. Who cares about who goes on tour to Australia? I mean, that doesn't matter. I mean, that's what they're doing straight after the game. Who cares? We're not nursing Pope in Joe Linton, in nursing Callum Wilson through his illness. We're not nursing them so they can play in Australia, are we? Let's get the best team we can put out on Saturday. And if these guys aren't ready to play, say so. You know, because there's Newcastle fans are frustrated. We've waited for Pope to come back. He sat on the bench for 3 games. And by the way, as a cover goalkeeper, unless you're a cover goalkeeper at Manchester City, you don't get on. Manchester City, their goalkeeper, they've used their sub-goalkeeper 4 times during a game. Can you believe that? That must be something of a record. Well, he's actually come on during a game because Edison's got injured. But you just sit on the bench. So yeah, he's either good enough to play this weekend or he's not. And Joe Linton, and I know there's an argument that he's a big unit and they take more time to get up to 100% when they play because they're physically big and it's harder than a light player who can come back quicker. But surely if we're going down there and we're going to have to be all guns blazing and we're going to have to gamble, then you play Pope, you play Joe Linton, you get Wilson on the bench because what are you saving him for if he's ill? They've played Isaac when he's been ill the last 2 games, so can Wilson not sit on the bench? I don't know. But I mean, I'm really getting sick of the whole thing. But this game now, it's all down to this. This is it. 90 minutes, and that's the end of the season.
But John, this is where my my brain starts to fire out question marks. Listening to you talk there, and you're talking of players being protected. Why did Isaac play last Saturday when he was ill?
Exactly.
Because he wouldn't send a team out when it was ill and not. I'm telling you the official club situation, not necessarily mine or yours, Mal. If you've got a 23-goal centre forward and he's willing to go out on the pitch because he's not injured, he's under the weather, he's not feeling good, and one chance falls to him, would he have more chance of scoring it than anybody else?
All right,
go without you might have gone without Isaac if you'd had Wilson fully fit, but you didn't have Wilson at all. Wilson had took himself out of the equation completely. Isaac didn't.
Yeah, but Isaac took himself out of the equation and just stood around on the left wing.
I think you've been very harsh to him, Malcolm, because I think he's quality and had a wonderful season, and I would never.
He's had a wonderful season.
I would never say that he had a bad attitude and just stands around. I would never say that about Isaac. I honestly wouldn't.
But he was obviously so ill. He was obviously so ill, John, that he just wasn't up to it. And the one thing a professional footballer should be is honest with himself. And if he's not up to it, he should say, I really don't think I'm going to be able to do it today. So get somebody else in who can.
Well, would you leave him out at Brentford then, Malcolm?
No, because he's not ill now. He was back last Saturday, and
Wait
if
a
he's
minute,
ill,
who says he's
yes,
not
I
ill
would have
now? He
whacked him
played
out.
last night as if he was ill.
He was a lot better last night than he was on
But not
Saturday.
100%. That chance he had, that the fella got back at him when Gordon squared him and he was through, he would have put that away under normal circumstances.
Yes, he would have
all
done.
day long.
Yeah, I
And he
agree
didn't.
with you on that. Yeah,
He didn't.
yeah.
Okay, Newcastle do travel to Brentford at the final game of the season. Of course, all games simultaneously kick off at 4:00. And the team news, well, no Tino Livramento this weekend. The ankle injury will keep him out alongside Willock, Miley, Target, Tonali, Botman and Lascelles. Callum Wilson at the moment is predicted to return after illness. He has missed the last two fixtures. He didn't turn up either at the online Q&A this afternoon. So we will wait and see what happens with him. Hopefully he will be there to play some part on Sunday. Rico Henry, Joshua Da Silva, Aaron Hickey, Ben Mee will all miss out for Brentford, while Nathan Collins, Frank Onyeka and Neil Maupay are all provisionally available. Following 13th and 9th place finishes in their first two Premier League campaigns, Brentford are assured of 15th or 16th spot this time round. It's assumed that Sunday will see Ivan Toney make his final appearance for Brentford. He's failed to score in his last 11 Premier League games, but has scored 3 goals against Newcastle in 4 Premier League outings against his former club. On home soil this season, Thomas Frank's side have won just 5 times. They've drawn 7 and they've lost the remaining 6. The referee this weekend is Simon Hooper. It's his 3rd game in charge of a Newcastle fixture. That follows on from the 4-1 home win over Chelsea in the 2-0 FA Cup defeat at Manchester City. And on VAR, could it be for the last time, is Paul Tierney. So, Malcolm, give us your views on this game. What are you expecting? And give us your prediction.
Well, with the situation that Newcastle are in, and Brentford, in all honesty, they've not got anything to fight for. They're safe. They can't improve their situation any at all. And Newcastle, they have got European football resting on the result of this match. If Newcastle win, we go into Europe. And so, if as a player, I would be winding everybody up and expect them to be winding everybody as well, because every footballer wants to play in Europe. The opportunity rarely comes around. Take it when it's there, for heaven's sake. And so I think we're going to win it. And I'm expecting a performance more like Burnley than we've seen in the last couple of games. And so I'm going to take Newcastle to win 2-0.
Okay, 2-0 win for Malcolm. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Newcastle. I think they'll find it within themselves to get a result. I think Manchester United will come a cropper at Brighton. John, what about you?
Well, I'm thoroughly disillusioned because I've been optimistic throughout this run into the season. And when I think of what I said about Brighton and what I said about Manchester United and what I got, were totally 2 different things. I, for the first time, have become dispirited and anxious, but because there's no indication. Everything Malcolm said and you said is absolutely, totally correct. This is our last chance. Let's do it. Let's, you realize it's that all applied against Manchester United, and we didn't do it against Manchester United. The same applied against Manchester United. It's applying on Sunday against Brentford. The same applied against Brighton. Having said that, what I do believe, and this isn't fudging, because at the end of the day, all that matters is where we are and where we're going. At the end of the day, I think we will match the Manchester United result, which is all that matters.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't got a win. We've got because let's forget about Chelsea. Chelsea are away. We're not going to catch Chelsea. Chelsea are home to Bournemouth on a fabulous run. They're doing everything right their way. Let's forget them. Their way. We can't get Spurs. So it's down to Manchester United. I think whether we both win, whether we both draw or we both lose, and it'll probably be that we both lose. But actually, if we do both lose, then we're in Europe because we've matched their score and we've got a huge advantage on goal difference. Yes, it then goes to the cup final, but what I'm saying will happen, and all that matters is not whether we win on Sunday or what the score is. We will match Manchester United's result on Sunday, and Manchester City will then beat them in the cup final, which would put us in Europe. And that's what I think will happen.
Okay. So you're going for what scoreline, John?
I'm not going for a score. It doesn't matter. I don't care if we lose, as long as Manchester United lose. We will match the Manchester United score, and Manchester City will win the cup. That means we're in Europe. Tell me anything else matters on Sunday. All that matters on Sunday is whether we're getting Europe or not.
Very true.
If we draw on Sunday and Manchester United win, then we're snookered. I would rather we lost than they lost. We will end up in Europe because we'll match their score and they won't win the cup.
A great show as always, gents. Looking forward to catching up with you next week. We have been broadcasting on Twitter tonight as well. 250 of you watching on there. Please jump onto YouTube now if you've got a channel, or even if you haven't, and just hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to NUFC Matters. It is 7 shows a week on here, even through the summer. Lots to talk about, I'm sure, as always, in the summer and the build-up to next season. But let's get this season out of the way first. I'll be back with Supermac and Gibbo next Thursday, 6 o'clock. Until then, take care, lads. Good night.
All right, let's enjoy this last game, eh?
Fingers and toes crossed.